Hello guys, today we are going to continue solving one-step equations, but we are going to use multiplication and division this week. Okay, so the first one to review says 15 times some number is 330. Obviously a number next to a letter means multiplication, and the inverse or the opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide this side by 15 to get the variable by itself. That's always the objective, is to get that x, the variable, by itself. So we're going to do the inverse and divide by 15 on both sides. So we got the variable by itself on the left, and then on the right we need to solve. So we're going to do 330 divided by 15. Remember, the top number always goes on the inside. 15 does not go into 3. It does go into 33 twice, which is 30. We're going to subtract and get 3, bring down the next 0, and then 15 into 30 goes twice again. Okay, so x is 22. Okay. If we wanted to double check that, we could put 22 back in for the x to make sure it makes sense. 15 times 22. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 plus 1 is 3. 2 times 5 is 10. 2 times 1 is 2, plus 1 is 3. So if we check it, it does equal 330, so we know we've done it correct. Okay. All right, starting with number 2, we have something divided by 6 is 48. So instead of g divided by 6, the inverse of divide by 6 is to multiply by 6. So we're going to multiply this side by 6, which cancels out, and multiply this side by 6. So on the left, we have g by itself. On the right, we just need to multiply 48 times 6. 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. So we have 288. Okay. So again, just using inverse operations to solve, get that variable by itself. All right, so now we have some decimals to do. This says 2 3/10 times something is 34 5/10. So instead of multiplying, which is what it states, we're going to do the inverse operation and divide both sides by 2 3/10. Obviously 2.3 divided by 2.3 is 1n, so we got our n by itself, and then we need to divide on the right. We have 34.5 divided by 2.3. Remember, you may not have a decimal on the outside, so we're going to move the decimal once on the divisor, which means we have to move it once in the dividend. So I'm going to rewrite my problem. So I have 345 divided by 23. Goes into 34 once. Okay, and then 23 into 115. You can do a little bit of guess and check. 10, 11. Oh, wait, I messed up. 3 times 5 is 15. How about that? 10 plus 1 is 11. There we go. So 115 works. It checks out. So n is 15. Okay. Make sure you guys are still always boxing your final answers, so when we do submit later on in the week, I know where your answer is. Okay. All right, let's talk about number 4. We've got a fraction. This says 1/5 times something is 5/9. Don't let the fractions scare you. Same thing, it says 1/5 times x. So the inverse of multiplying by 1/5 is dividing by 1/5. I'm going to write it differently on this side. I'm going to write divide by 1/5. Okay, on the left, 1/5 divided by 1/5 is just x, 1x. And then remember, we do not divide fractions. We keep it, switch it, flip it, or multiply by the reciprocal. Nothing can cross cancel, so we'll just multiply straight across and get 25/9. Remember, 25 divided by 9 goes in twice, which is 18 with 7 left over. So we have 2 7/9. Okay. Number 5, we've got a decimal. 3/10 times something is 56.1. We're going to do the inverse. Instead of multiplying, we're going to divide by 0.3 on both sides to get that g by itself. So we have 56 1/10 divided by 3/10. Again, we may not have a decimal in the divisor, so we're going to move it once on the divisor, which means we have to move it once in the dividend and rewrite our problem. 561 divided by 3. All right, so goes in once, subtract and get 2, bring down your next number. 3 into 26 would go 8 times. 8 times 3 is 24. Subtract and get 2, bring down the 1, and 3 into 21 we know goes 7 times. So G is 187. Okay. Okay. Number 6, it says S divided by 3 2/10 is 5. So since it says divide by 3.2, I'm going to do the inverse and multiply by 3.2. So leaving me with S. I should probably make that a time sign. So I've got 3.2 times 5. Remember, the number with the most digits is going to go on top. So we're going to multiply. 15 and 1 is 16, and move that decimal once back in. So S is 16. Okay. Number 7, here's another fraction. So this says 2/3 times x. So instead of multiplying, we want to divide. So again, on this side, I'm just going to write it vertically. Over here, I'm going to kind of write it out, just so you remember that we do not divide fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal. We keep it, switch it, flip it. Okay. Again, I cannot cross cancel, so I can just multiply straight across and get 21/20. That is improper. That would turn into 1. 20 goes into 21 one time with 1 left over. 1 and 1/20. So again, 21 divided by 20 goes in once with 1 left over. Okay. And then the last one, we have 4 times x equals 5/8. Again, this says multiply by 4, so I'm going to do the inverse and divide by 4. I'm going to divide by 4, get that x by itself. Remember, anytime you're dividing by a whole number, just put it over 1. And again, we do not divide fractions. We keep it, switch it, flip it, or multiply by the reciprocal. So I have 5/8 times 1/4. Again, I cannot cross cancel, so I multiply straight across and get 5/32. Okay. Alrighty, guys, that is it for today. If you need to go back, review, redo, slow down, feel free to do that. And then tomorrow we will do some practice problems.